Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and I have a double action video for you today. One battle, two different perspectives. And this battle is going to be shown from the perspective of two players that I'm pretty sure most, if not all of you, are already going to be familiar with. One goes by the in-game name Ship the Nuts, but it is in fact DezGamez, a player that I first met in the World of Warships closed beta when he had the great misfortune to be coming around an island in his light cruiser when I was coming in the other direction in a destroyer. And the other, of course, is the one, the only, the late, the great Circonflexes. This is a Tier 9 standard battle on Prokhorovka. Both of our partners in crime are in the French Tier 8 light tank, the ELC Even 90. I realise I've done nothing but feature French vehicles in one shape or another all week. I swear I'm not doing it on purpose, it's just the way things have been working out. Since they're both in scout vehicles, they very wisely decide to split up and cover opposite sides of the map. Circon heading for the hill, and Dez heading for the wide open field along the north-south road running along the western end of the map. The lack of friendly tanks accompanying Dez probably clues him in to the likelihood that he's going to have to work extremely hard for a living in the first half of this battle, since he's basically alone with the exception of an EBR and a Scorpion G. The presence of the Scorpion G is obviously welcome. It's a decent tank destroyer with a very meaty gun. The EBR 90 getting here ahead of him, though, not so welcome. I mean, he's here, he's spotting targets, so Dez is going to shoot at what he's spotting, but, well, the EBR is a machine that's, on this map at least, far better suited to scouting the middle of the map. It's a machine that is insanely fast, difficult to hit, and doesn't come to an immediate halt when one of its wheels gets blown off. Unlike, for example, an actual tank, like the ELC Even 90 here. The one definite advantage as a scout that Dez has over the EBR is superior view range, and he attempts to make the most of that, but kind of overdoes it when moving into the bush there, gets himself spotted, and is forced to go on the move again. EBR's just evacuated the bush that he was spotting from, and I think he's just come to the conclusion too that two scouts over here is one too many, and he is in fact now heading to the middle of the field, so yeah, that's not too bad. Plenty of enemies have been spotted on this side of the map, although at the moment there's a definite shortage of enemies to shoot at, so Dez moves up, decides that he's going to make this cluster of bushes here his home for the immediate future. Takes a bit of time, making sure he's positioned just right, particularly that his tank is positioned, pointing in the right direction to make a hasty retreat if he needs it, and starts lighting up targets. An enemy ELC. I don't think Dez was the one who spotted him, but he's definitely keeping him spotted, and the fact that that guy has just been forced to evacuate his spotting bush can only be good news. Meanwhile, Circonflexes has not been idle. Now, despite his best efforts, Circonflexes wasn't able to get to the hill without being spotted, but he did manage to get into position without being hit, so, well, it's not much, but we'll take it. Enemy RU-251. That's probably the guy that spotted Circon on the way over here, but he managed to get detected and hit himself. There are not too many of Circonflexes' team who appear to be in any kind of rush to actually join him over here. There are a couple, but, well, they've kind of been caught on the back end of the hill, and neither team really controls the middle of the map at the moment, but the enemy team have more control of the middle of the map. Circon spotted again, and yeah, that's the danger. Getting hit by tanks in the middle of the map. Which means these guys are in a lot of trouble. The Lorraine in particular, getting hit from two different directions, and once that thing's magazine is dry, it's just a target for 40 seconds while it sits around waiting to reload. And the Lorraine is gone. Circonflexes has lost more than a third of his health, the battle has barely started, the enemy controlled the top of the hill, and the middle ground, giving them flanking fire into any friendly tanks attempting to take the top of the hill. This is not a good situation. Then again, the enemy T-44 over there isn't exactly in a great spot either. He's safe from fire from friendly tanks in the middle of the field, but not from friendly tanks up here. Circonflexes just claimed his first kill. But there's a lot more enemies suddenly appearing on the top of the hill up there. The E50 trying to find cover behind the wreck of the Lorraine, the Lance and C, just keeping moving, trying to avoid fire from 2 different directions. The Waffenträger 4 not really being much use to anybody. Yeah. Time to be somewhere else. Although he's not completely going to abandon the hill. He's given himself some get out of jail options in case the situation does become untenable. Because the enemy tanks on the top of the hill aren't in any rush to push over. So the danger really is only from the tanks in the middle. And now if the tanks in the middle can actually get eyes on the enemy tanks on the top of the hill, they might be able to help these guys over here on the approach to the hill do something about it. Of course now Circonflexes has done what he can and he's reloading. Time to fall back. Again, reassess the situation and oh shit. No, they're going for it. Right, yeah, fuck the hill, didn't want it anyway. It's time to get the hell out of Dodge and be somewhere else. So, while Circonflexes is desperately trying to not become a battle statistic, what's been going on with Dez? Well, it's been fairly quiet, although not because there aren't any enemy tanks to shoot at, just because there's hardly anybody on his team in a position to do any shooting. So, while spotting targets, he's also adding his own firepower to the mix by backing up from the bush so that it becomes opaque and non-transparent, at which point you can fire through it without the target that you're aiming at being able to see you. The Scorpion G, of course, is keeping his gun working. But, yes. Scorpion, if you would... There we go. Lovely. Thank you. Well done. And Dez finishes him off, getting himself spotted in the process, of course, so he keeps moving. Anxious not to become a battle statistic himself, because there are at least 2 enemy tank destroyers at the bottom end of that road who would almost certainly love nothing more than to put a couple of shots into him. At this point, of course, he's gone undetected again, so... Yep, Scorpion G, still there. And surprisingly, still on full health, so if the enemy ELC spotted him, nobody appeared to care. Dez moves up a little further. I'm pretty sure he didn't intend to knock that tree over. There's plenty of bush there for him to hide in, and knocking the tree over just advertises to anybody watching that somebody's just taken cover in that bush. It's not the first time Dez has done something like that in this game. I wonder if he's just unused to driving this tank and he doesn't realise how long it takes to slow down to a stop when it's moving at full speed. Well anyway, he's in position, looking for targets. We know there's a UDES 3 and a Kanonen Jagdpanzer down there, and there's the UDES. Pulls back. Waits for it to aim, he's got 3 shots. Nice. Even better, and... well, it would have been nice if he'd gotten the kill, but what's important is that that thing is dead. And at this point, we're going to switch back to Circonflexes to find out if he makes it off that hill alive. I mean, he should. He's certainly fast enough, and small enough, and sneaky enough. But Circon wouldn't be Circon if he also wasn't cheeky enough to stop in the middle of the field and take a punt at some of the enemy tanks. But just the one, because he almost certainly got spotted. Oh, actually, he didn't get spotted. Still, it's always safer to just assume you got spotted rather than sitting around waiting for Sixth Sense to go off, because Sixth Sense goes off, I think, anything up to 3 seconds after you have been spotted, as you can see there. And in the length of time it takes for you to get spotted and then Sixth Sense to notify you of the fact, that's plenty of time for people to start aiming at you, and Circonflexes has been playing this game for long enough to know, if you think you might have been spotted, act as if you have. If you've been watching Circonflexes play World of Tanks for any length of time, you might have noticed that just about every time his gun's reloaded, he always seems to be in a position to stop and take a shot at somebody. That doesn't happen through luck. It might not look like it when you see him play, because he's usually laughing and joking around, but trust me, everything that this guy does is precisely calculated. You'll rarely ever see him just doing one thing at a time. I mean, take this for example. It looks like he's just getting the hell out of there and rejoining his platoon mate. And he kind of is, but he also kind of isn't. Watch. You see that ridge in the centre of the map? It's relatively high ground, and it does give you good views. And there's a very convenient patch of bushes right in the middle of it, because he's fully expecting enemy tanks to come charging over that ramp and immediately have their attention distracted by the artillery, who hasn't bothered to get out of there and instead is just sitting waiting to die. Although they are starting to push over not just in the same spot that Circonflexes retreated from. There's plenty of targets, although they're not very good targets. Well, they're not very good targets of Circonflexes' 90mm gun, but no T55A. Don't do it. Don't go over. Don't. Oh, I thought he was going to go over. You see, a tank coming over that ramp is vulnerable, like the Leopard prototype there, who came out and, as predicted, finished off the artillery. So you want them to be the ones coming over. You don't want to be the one going over the other way, because nobody can support you, and you're the vulnerable one. The T-55A isn't actually trying to go over the ramp and fight tanks on the other side. He's just trying to proxy spot them, like that, which enabled Circon to finish off the RU-251. The thing is, with Circon here, what the T-55A is doing is largely redundant, because Circon's in a good position to spot enemy tanks crossing the railway line along virtually its whole length, and the T-55A really isn't, although he might get some early proxy spots of any enemy tanks preparing to cross the railway line. But even that is now of extremely limited value because they've just lost the Scorpion G, and aside from the T-55A, Circonflexes and Dez, that's it. The T-55A would probably have been better back there, shooting at targets that Circon and Dez were spotting, but, well, he didn't, and now he's kind of stuck where he is. Meanwhile, young Dez has been desperately trying to shoot at what he can while scuttling from one bush to another, and mostly managing to avoid getting shot in the process. But that enemy Kanonen Jagdpanzer 105 has been his nemesis, pushing him steadily further and further north, back up the map. And Dez is going to need him dead before he can be of any further assistance to his team. The tank destroyer definitely knows he's been spotted, but thanks to the double bushing here, he can't tell where the shots are coming from. The second shot hit, the third shot kills him, at more or less exactly the same time that Circonflexes took out the Hawk 30. Those two kills have taken a huge amount of pressure off Dez. But he's not going to have any time to relax, because while he's reloading and Circonflexes falls back to join him, the T-55A succumbs to the inevitable, and now it's just the two of them against 5 enemy tanks. Now, looking at the map, the biggest concentration of enemies at the moment is to the north. The Emil 2 in the middle of the map is relatively low on health and probably, although they don't know for sure, but probably unsupported. So he's the target. The tricky bit is that that thing has a turret front that's 215mm thick, which is why Circonflexes is barreling south as fast as he can to try to get some side shots into it. And that's when the 50TP introduces yet another complication, neatly cutting Dez off from Circon. Circonflexes is busy trying to get side shots into the Emil-2 crossing the field over there, and he could really do without the added attention of the 50TP. But he is able to fire from a position where neither of the two enemy tanks spot him, although he's very unlucky with his first shot, which means that despite the second and third shots going in, it's not enough to kill the Swedish Tier 9 Heavy. Meanwhile, Dez has momentarily lost sight of the big Polish tank, and he's not really in a position to assist Circon with the Emil-2. However, he soon catches sight of the 50TP, and he is in a position, after setting him on fire with the first shot, to make sure all 3 count, and the Polish Tier 8 is quickly removed from the battlefield, even if the Swedish Tier 9 stays alive to continue fighting. At least for now, because they have no intention of leaving that Emil-2 alive. They just have to get south as quickly as they possibly can and try to work their way around him. Or at least that was the plan. And then he gets spotted. And he obviously has sixth sense and knows he's been spotted. Circonflexes risks a shot. Unfortunately, it bounces. And now they don't have time to do anything fancy because the Object 257 is heading south down the road towards them. So they need to kill that Emil-2 and then get the hell out of there as quickly as they possibly can. They don't have time to do anything fancy. They're gambling on the Emil-2 just hunkering down in the same position where he was last spotted while he waits for the Object 257 to arrive from the north. And that is in fact exactly what has happened. He's dead, and now it's time to DD and get the hell out of there as Circonflexes narrowly misses taking a hit, I think, from the Object 257. They've spotted the enemy artillery. Despite the fact that they're in open ground, the enemy artillery has not actually spotted them. Now they're going to kill the artillery, and they will be spotted doing it, and that's why Dez slammed the brakes on, because they need to stay undetected until the last possible moment, because the second they start shooting at the Su-14-2 there, they're going to attract fire from both the Object 257 and potentially also the Leopard prototype. Circonflexes, now reloaded, is going to go for it, and he's not going to hang around. 2 shots should be enough. There's 1. There's 2, then over the embankment and safe. Dez, unfortunately, because he took the long way around, has been spotted by the Object 257. So, a bit of a brown trouser moment for young Desmond here, but he gets away with it too. Now then, Circonflexes has a plan. I know he thinks he's old, but he's only 30. That's nothing, trust me. But despite his relative youth, he's clearly a connoisseur of some of the finest John Wayne westerns, because I've definitely seen this kind of move pulled before in such timeless classics as Rio Grande and My Darling Clementine. Yes, he's letting them think that they're going in one direction, and then as soon as they're off the radar, he's turning around, doubling back, and heading in the exact opposite direction. And the reason they're doing this is because if they're going to stand a chance of killing that Object 257, they are going to have to hit it from behind. Its armour is just too good. And sure enough, the Object 257, clearly not a fan of classic westerns, has fallen for it. Unfortunately, well, his armour is just too good. And having fallen for it once, he's unlikely to fall for that old gag again. And while at the moment the Object 257 doesn't know which side of the tracks Circon and Dez are going to use to go back and reset the cap, the second Circon drives through the cap circle, he's probably got a pretty good idea. Unfortunately, Circon didn't really have the time to do anything fancy, because if he'd skirted the cap circle, there's a fairly good chance the Object 257 might have seen him. However, knowing which route your two French light tanks are using to get back to the cap and reset it, and actually being able to do anything about it when you're in an Object 257, are two entirely different things. And it looks like the Object has given up the pursuit and instead is trying to double back to the cap as quickly as he possibly can, probably guessing correctly that the Leopard prototype is going to die, but hoping that he'll be able to take out at least one of these two French tanks when they take the shot. Circon, using that central ridge line in order to keep eyes on the 257 as he makes it back, nicely double bushed, kills the Leopard prototype without getting spotted. And that just leaves the Object 257. A pair of extremely fast light tanks armed with 3-shot autoloaders and one big fat stupid slow heavy tank. Oh, this should be pretty easy. Well, no. Because these 90mm guns can only damage an Object 257 from the rear. And even then, it's substantially easier said than done. Dez actually has the rear of the Object 257. He has APCR loaded. And even then, because let's not forget, armour-piercing ammunition loses penetration with range, and even then he's not capable of doing any damage to the Russian heavy. Likewise from Circonflexes' angle. Even though the tank you're shooting at can't actually see you, it doesn't really matter if you can't do any damage to the tank that you're shooting at. He can quite happily sit there taking hits from you all day if you're not doing any damage to him. I mean, the way these two guys are working together is textbook. One of them spots while the other one shoots. Then while the shooter is reloading, he spots while the other one shoots. And it's great, but, well, if they just had guns that were capable of penetrating an Object 257's armour, their tactics might actually stand a chance of working, but they don't have guns that are capable of penetrating his armour, so their tactics aren't working. And now what's the Object doing? Well, he's clearly given up on trying to chase down and catch a pair of French light tanks, but he's not trying to cap either. You'd think that's what he would be doing. I mean, I can't catch them, so make them come to me. And they're going to have to get close, because their guns don't have the penetration to damage him at range. And if they have to get close, he can see them and he can kill them. So, Circon and Dez decide, 2 minutes to go. The Leopard prototype, and potentially also the Object 257, are not the only two tanks in this battle that are capable of sitting inside a cap circle. All credit to that Object 257, it doesn't actually take him too long to figure out what these two are up to, because after some time of, well, obviously not seeing anything, but also not getting shot at by anything, he pretty quickly realises they're going to try to cap. And so he tries to beat them to the punch. And in fact he does. He starts capping well ahead. But, well, two tanks cap a lot faster than one. Right now that Object 257 is looking at the time remaining and he's looking at the cap counter, and while he looks like he started capping about 5 seconds too late, there is a 5-second grace period at the end of a battle where you can still finish capping, but not if you're being outcapped by twice the number of enemy tanks. So he has no option but to abandon the cap and run south as fast as he possibly can in order to attempt to, at the very least, reset and hopefully kill both of these little French buggers. Well, they're not really French. One's a German, the other one's a swamp German, but you know what I mean. And while the Object 257 is blessed not only with a great gun, godlike armour and an engine that can do 50 kilometers per hour because, you know, Russian, it's still not fast enough to make it down here and reset the cap in the 35 seconds or so that these two jokers have given him. So that's an extremely unlikely but thoroughly well-deserved victory for Circonflexes and DezGamez in a Tier 9 battle on Prokhorovka in the Tier 8 French light tank, the ELC Even 90. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, there are links in the video description to both Dez and Circon's Twitch and YouTube channels. In the meantime, as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.